Vincent Sterling stood on the balcony of his Manhattan penthouse, watching the city lights shimmer like scattered diamonds below. At 36 years old, he had everything most men dream about. 3 luxury homes across 2 continents, a collection of vintage cars worth more than small countries, a banking empire inherited from his grandfather that generated wealth faster than he could spend it. Yet as he sipped his $1,000 whiskey, Vincent felt nothing. His phone buzzed with another message from Natasha, the fashion designer he had taken to dinner last week. Or was it Veronica, the actress from the film premiere? They blurred together now, beautiful faces with calculated smiles, each one hoping to secure a place in his world of privilege. He deleted the message without reading it. The charity gala. Vincent attended the Children's Education Fund gala because his assistant insisted it would be good publicity. The Sterling Foundation needed positive press after the recent tax controversy, so he put on his custom-tailored tuxedo, practiced his camera-ready smile, and prepared for another evening of air kisses and shallow conversations. The ballroom glittered with New York's elite. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over designer gowns and borrowed jewelry. Waiters glided between clusters of wealthy donors carrying champagne and expensive appetizers. Vincent moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands, making promises he would let his assistant keep. Then he saw her. She stood near the silent auction table, studying a display of handmade children's artwork with genuine interest. Her emerald dress was elegant but clearly not designer. Simple silver earrings caught the light as she tilted her head to read a child's crayon description of their dream school. What captured Vincent's attention was her expression. While everyone else in the room wore masks of sophistication and strategic friendliness, her face showed pure, unguarded joy at seeing these children's hopes displayed so publicly. In an expected conversation, Vincent found himself walking toward her without planning to. Up close, he noticed details that made her stand out even more. No expensive makeup concealing natural beauty. Hands that showed honest work rather than weekly manicures. Eyes that looked at him with curiosity rather than calculation. Beautiful, aren't they? She said, gesturing to the artwork. This one is my student, Carlos. He wrote that his dream school would have a library big enough to hold every story in the world. Your student? Vincent heard himself ask. I teach 3rd grade at Roosevelt Elementary in the Bronx. She extended her hand with simple confidence. Camila Rivers. I volunteer with the Children's Education Fund during summers. Her handshake was firm and warm. Vincent realized he was still holding her hand a moment too long and released it quickly. Vincent Sterling, he managed. Recognition flickered in her eyes, but not the usual reaction he received. No sudden calculation about his wealth. No strategic smile. Just a slight nod of acknowledgement before she turned back to the artwork. Carlos comes to school an hour early every day just to read in our tiny library, she continued, as if speaking to a fellow teacher rather than a billionaire. We only have about 200 books, most of them falling apart, but he treats each one like treasure. Proper library. Money isn't everything, Mr. Sterling. Her voice was gentle but firm. Carlos needs books, yes. But he also needs teachers who show up every day believing in him. He needs a community that values education over test scores. He needs people who see him as more than a statistic. The words hit Vincent like cold water. He had written checks to dozens of charities, attended countless galas, funded programs he'd never visited. But no one had ever suggested his money might not be the answer. Seeds of change throughout the evening. Vincent found his attention drifting back to Camila. She moved through the crowd differently than everyone else. She listened when people spoke rather than waiting for her turn to talk. She asked questions about the children's programs, with detailed knowledge that came from genuine care. When the auction began, Vincent watched her bid carefully on a set of educational books, stopping when the price exceeded what she could afford. Without thinking, he made an anonymous donation to ensure she won them. Later, as guests began leaving, Vincent approached her again. Would you have dinner with me? The words came out more awkwardly than any business proposal he had ever made. Camila studied him for a long moment. Why? The question threw him. Women never asked why. They simply said yes, already calculating the advantages of being seen with Vincent Sterling. "Because I would like to know more about Carlos and his dream library," Vincent said, surprising himself with his honesty. "And because you're the first person I've met in years who didn't look at me and see a bank account." A small smile touched her lips. "I don't date wealthy men, Mr. Sterling. Our worlds are too different." "Then don't date me," Vincent said quickly. "Just have coffee. Talk to me about teaching. Help me understand what actually makes a difference in children's lives." Camila picked up her small purse, the worn leather, a sharp contrast to the luxury surrounding them. "There's a diner called Joe's near my school. Tomorrow at 7 in the morning, before my classes start. If you're serious about learning rather than impressing, you'll show up." She walked away before Vincent could respond, leaving him standing alone in the glittering ballroom, feeling more awake than he had in years. For the first time since inheriting his fortune, Vincent Sterling had met someone who challenged rather than flattered him. Someone who saw past his wealth to question the man underneath, and for reasons he couldn't explain. That terrified and excited him in equal measure. Vincent's alarm rang at 5:30 in the morning, a time he had not seen since his college days. He lay in his silk sheets staring at the ceiling, questioning his sanity. He had attended exactly 0 breakfast meetings at diners in the Bronx during his entire adult life. His driver, Raymond's eyebrows rose slightly, but he said nothing. They drove through Manhattan as the city awakened, past the familiar towers of steel and glass. Across the bridge into neighborhoods Vincent had only seen from highway overpasses. The Bronx morning revealed itself in layers. Small businesses opening their metal shutters. Parents walking children to early bus stops. Street vendors setting up fruit stands with careful precision. This was a world that operated on different rules than Vincent's life of luxury and leisure. Joe's Diner occupied a corner building with faded red awnings and windows that had seen decades of sunrise. Through the glass, Vincent spotted Camila sitting in a booth, reading a book and sipping coffee from a chipped ceramic mug. She looked up as he entered, and something flickered across her face. Surprise, perhaps, that he had actually come. "A different kind of wealth you came," Camila said simply, gesturing to the seat across from her. Vincent slid into the worn vinyl booth. The menu was laminated and sticky, offering breakfast specials for less than his usual coffee cost. Everything about this place contradicted his normal experience. Yet something about its honest simplicity felt more real than any 5-star restaurant. "I said I would," Vincent replied. A waitress appeared. Older woman with kind eyes and efficient movements. "The usual, honey," she asked Camila. "And whatever my friend would like." Vincent ordered coffee and eggs, watching the easy familiarity between Camila and the diner staff. This was her world, where people knew her name and her order. Where relationships were built on daily presence rather than occasional appearances. "Tell me about Carlos," Vincent said once Rosa had left. Camila's face lit up in a way that made her beautiful in a manner completely different from the women Vincent usually spent time with. "Carlos Martinez, 9 years old. Comes from a single-parent home. His mother works 2 jobs to keep them in a tiny apartment 3 blocks from school." She pulled out her phone, showing Vincent photos of a small boy with serious eyes and a gap-toothed smile, surrounded by books. He reads at a 6th grade level but does math at a 3rd grade level because he has mild dyscalculia. The school wants to hold him back. I'm fighting to get him proper support instead. Be held back. He needs people who believe in him. Vincent listened as their breakfast arrived. Camila spoke about her other students with the same passionate detail. There was Destiny, whose family was homeless but never missed school. Jerome, who acted out because of untreated trauma but had incredible artistic talent. Maria, who translated for her non-English, speaking parents while maintaining perfect grades. Each child was a complete person to Camila, not a number or a problem to be solved. The uncomfortable truth. "Why do you do it?" Vincent asked. "Teaching pays poorly. The conditions are difficult. You could probably make more money doing almost anything else." Why do you run a bank, Mr. Sterling? Vincent, he corrected automatically, and I inherited it. You inherited wealth? Yes. But you choose to continue the work. Why? The question caught Vincent off guard. No one had ever asked him that. His role as head of Sterling Financial Group was simply understood, expected, unchallenged. I suppose because it's what Sterlings do, he said slowly. My grandfather built the bank. My father expanded it. I'm supposed to continue the legacy. Supposed to, Camila repeated softly. Not want to. Not feel called to? Supposed to. She leaned forward slightly. I teach because every single day I get to see children discover they're capable of more than they believed. I get to be the person who says you matter to kids who hear you're not enough everywhere else. That feeling when Jerome finally understands a math concept he struggled with. Or when Destiny reads her first chapter book. That's why I do it. Not for money or legacy or expectations. When was the last time he had felt genuinely passionate about his work? When had anything he did truly mattered, beyond profit margins and shareholder value? An unexpected proposal, I want to help, Vincent said suddenly. Let me fund a new library for your school. New books, computers, whatever Carlos and the other children need. Camila's expression shifted to something guarded. That's generous, but no thank you. What? Why not? Because you'd write a check, feel good about yourself, and never think about Roosevelt Elementary again. Her voice was kind but firm. Carlos doesn't need a stranger's guilt money. He needs consistent investment in his education and his community. Vincent felt frustration rising. I'm offering to help and you're refusing? I'm refusing empty charity, Camila corrected. Rich people love to throw money at problems from a distance. It makes you feel good without actually requiring you to change anything about your life. The words stung because they were true. Vincent thought about all the donations he had made, the programs he had funded, none of which he had ever visited or followed up on. Then tell me what would actually help, he said quietly. Camila studied him for a long moment. Come volunteer at the school. 2 afternoons a week for the next 2 months. Read with the children. Help with homework. Be present. If after 2 months you still want to write a check, we can talk about it then. 2 months? Vincent's mind raced through his calendar of board meetings and business dinners. Too much commitment? Camila's tone held a gentle challenge. Surely a billionaire can manage 2 afternoons a week. Vincent looked at this woman who asked nothing for herself while fighting fiercely for children who were not her own, who lived simply so she could give generously, who measured wealth in impact rather than dollars.
When do I start?
The building was old but well-maintained, with colorful murals covering walls that had seen generations of children. His designer jeans and expensive watch suddenly felt ridiculous. Camila met him at the entrance, wearing practical clothes and her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Ready? She asked. Vincent was not ready. He had negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. But the idea of spending an afternoon with third graders terrified him. The classroom was smaller than his walk-in closet. With mismatched furniture and books held together with tape, 23 children looked up as he entered, their expressions ranging from curious to suspicious. Class, this is Mr. Vincent, Camila announced. He's going to be helping us with reading time. A small boy with serious eyes and Carlos's gap-toothed smile from the photos raised his hand. Are you really a billionaire? Carlos asked directly. The other children leaned forward, waiting for his answer. Vincent crouched down to Carlos's level. I have a lot of money, yes? But I'm here because Miss Rivers told me you're the best reader she knows, and I want to learn from you. It was the truth. In that moment, surrounded by children who had so little yet showed up every day with hope, Vincent realized he had everything to learn and nothing to teach. Carlos considered this, then nodded seriously. Okay, you can read with me. As Vincent settled onto the worn carpet with Carlos and a battered copy of a fantasy novel, something shifted in his chest. For the first time in years, Vincent Sterling was exactly where he needed to be, even if he did not understand why yet. Vincent had never worked harder in his life than he did during those 8 weeks at Roosevelt Elementary. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, he left his corner office, ignored his assistants' increasingly concerned questions, and drove to the Bronx. The children tested him immediately. They asked why his watch cost more than their parents made in a year. They questioned why someone so rich would bother with kids like them. They challenged every assumption he had ever made about success and value. Jerome, the boy with untreated trauma and incredible artistic talent, barely spoke to Vincent for 3 weeks. Then one Thursday, he quietly slid a drawing across the table. It showed Vincent reading to Carlos, both of them smiling. At the bottom, in careful letters, Jerome had written, "Mr. Vincent is okay." That drawing now sat framed on Vincent's office desk, worth more to him than any of the expensive art pieces in his penthouse. Destiny, the homeless girl who never missed school, taught Vincent about resilience. She arrived every morning with her homework completed despite having no desk at the shelter. When Vincent offered to help her family find housing, "We don't need rescue, Mr. Vincent. We need a chance." Her words echoed in his mind for days. The growing connection as Vincent spent more time at the school. His relationship with Camila deepened in unexpected ways. They fell into a routine of walking to Joe's diner after his volunteer sessions. Talking about the children's progress over coffee and pie, Camila never asked about his wealth or his business. Instead, she asked questions that made him think harder than any board meeting ever had. What brought him joy? When did he feel most himself? What would he do with his life if money was no object? Vincent found himself sharing things he had never told anyone. About the pressure of living up to his family name. About the loneliness of being surrounded by people who only wanted something from him. About the growing emptiness he felt despite having everything society said should make him happy. "You're mourning," Camila said one evening, her voice gentle. "Mourning the life you thought you wanted before you realized it wasn't making you happy." But she was right. Being with her, working with the children, Vincent felt more alive than he had in years. But he also felt the weight of his old life pulling at him, demanding his return to the world he had always known. One Thursday evening, as they left the school together, Camila stopped walking. The spring sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, and she looked at Vincent with an expression he could not quite read. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly. "I'm starting to care about you, Vincent. The real you, not the billionaire version. And that terrifies me." Vincent's heart raced. "Why does it terrify you?" "Because your world and mine can't mix. Eventually, you'll go back to your penthouse and your business deals and your life of luxury. And I'll still be here, teaching 3rd grade, fighting for kids who need someone in their corner." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I can't be someone's charity project or temporary adventure." "You're not," Vincent said urgently, reaching for her hand. "Camila, these past 2 months have been the most real thing I've experienced in my entire life. You've made me question everything I thought I knew about success and purpose and happiness." "Questioning isn't the same as changing," Camila said softly. "When your family pressures you to stop this volunteer work, when your business associates mock you for spending time in the Bronx, when the novelty wears off, what then?" Vincent wanted to promise her he would never leave, never go back to his old life. But the words stuck in his throat because he honestly did not know if he was strong enough to choose this new path over everything he had always been, the impossible decision. The crisis came 2 weeks later in the form of a business opportunity. Sterling Financial Group had the chance to acquire a struggling real estate portfolio in the Bronx, 15 properties that could be renovated and sold for massive profit. Vincent sat in the conference room. Looking at the proposal his investment team had prepared, the numbers were impressive. They could triple their investment within 18 months. Then he saw the addresses. One of the buildings was the apartment complex where Carlos and his mother lived. Another housed Destiny's family in their temporary shelter. A third building contained Joe's Diner and 5 other small businesses that had served the community for decades. The plan is simple, his chief investment officer explained. We buy low, renovate minimally, flip to developers who will build luxury condos. Standard gentrification play. Very profitable. What happens to the current residents? Vincent asked. The officer shrugged. Not our concern. They'll receive notice to relocate. Market rate for the area. Vincent looked at the photographs attached to the proposal. Buildings that needed work, yes, but were filled with families and businesses that made up the fabric of the community. The same community that had welcomed him, taught him, changed him. His father, attending the meeting via video call, leaned forward on the screen. This is exactly the kind of aggressive expansion Sterling Financial is known for, son. Your grandfather would be proud, would he? Vincent looked at the faces around the conference table. These people saw numbers and profit margins. They did not see Carlos reading every morning in a too-small library. They did not see Destiny doing homework by flashlight in a shelter. They did not see the community that Camila fought for every single day. I have a counterproposal, Vincent heard himself say, the speech that changed everything. Every person in the room turned to stare at Vincent. His father's expression on the video screen shifted from pride to concern. What if instead of flipping these properties for maximum profit, we renovated them as affordable housing? Vincent continued, his voice growing stronger. We could create a model that actually serves the community while still generating reasonable returns. Reasonable returns? His chief financial officer looked horrified. Vincent, we're talking about leaving tens of millions on the table. I'm talking about doing something that matters, Vincent replied. Sterling Financial Group has been extracting value from communities for 3 generations. What if we tried building value instead? His father's voice came through the speaker, cold and measured. Son, I think you need to step away from this volunteer work. It's clearly clouding your judgment. Something snapped inside Vincent. He stood, facing the video screen directly. My judgment has never been clearer, Father. I've spent 8 weeks with children who have nothing but show up every day with hope. I've seen teachers like Camila who sacrifice financial security to fight for students everyone else has given up on. I've witnessed a community that takes care of each other despite having every reason to be bitter and broken. He gestured at the proposal on the table. And now I'm supposed to displace those same people for profit? I'm supposed to destroy the diner where neighbors gather every morning? I'm supposed to force Carlos and his mother out of their home so we can build condos for people like me? You're being emotional and naive, his father said sharply. This is business. Maybe our business model is wrong, Vincent shot back. Maybe success shouldn't be measured only in dollars. Maybe Sterling Financial Group should be known for building communities instead of destroying them. The conference room fell silent. Vincent could feel the weight of 3 generations of Sterling legacy pressing down on him. The easy path was right there. Approve the standard deal, maintain the status quo. The leap of faith Vincent made his decision in that moment of silence. I'm restructuring my role at Sterling Financial Group. I'll maintain my position as major shareholder. But I'm stepping back from daily operations. I'm creating a new division focused on community development and affordable housing. Anyone who wants to join me in building something meaningful instead of just profitable is welcome. He looked around the room at the shocked faces. And if the board votes to pursue the standard acquisition plan for these Bronx properties, I'll personally buy them first and develop them the right way. His father's face on the screen had gone red. You're willing to throw away everything this family has built for some teacher and a group of children you barely know. I'm willing to build something new, Vincent said quietly. Something that would make me proud to pass on to my own children someday. Something that actually matters. He walked out of the conference room, his hands shaking but his heart strangely calm. His phone buzzed immediately with angry calls and texts from family members and business associates. Vincent ignored them all. Instead, he drove to Roosevelt Elementary. Camila was alone in her classroom, grading papers in the late afternoon light. She looked up in surprise when Vincent appeared in the doorway. I made a choice today, he said without preamble. I walked away from a deal that would have made me significantly richer, but would have destroyed this community. I'm restructuring my entire company to focus on development that actually helps people instead of displacing them. Camila set down her red pen slowly. Vincent, what are you saying? I'm saying you were right. I was living a life I thought I was supposed to want instead of figuring out what I actually needed. He moved closer, his voice thick with emotion. These past 2 months with you, with Carlos and Jerome and Destiny, I felt more alive than I have in my entire life. I don't want to go back to who I was. Your family will never forgive you, Camila said softly. You're giving up everything you've known, gaining everything that matters. Vincent knelt beside her desk, taking her hands in his. I'm asking if I can stay in yours. I'm asking if you'll let me keep showing up. Keep learning. Keep becoming the kind of man who deserves someone like you. Tears spilled down Camila's cheeks. You already are that man, Vincent. You proved it the moment you chose people over profit. Then be with me, Vincent whispered. Not because of what I have, but because of who I'm becoming. Help me build something beautiful. Help me matter. Vincent Sterling finally found what he had been searching for his entire life. Not wealth, or status, or power, but purpose, connection, and love. 6 months later, Carlos stood in the brand new library at Roosevelt Elementary, his eyes wide with wonder. Floor-to-ceiling shelves held thousands of books, all brand new. Comfortable reading nooks filled every corner. Computer stations lined one wall. It's big enough to hold every story in the world, he whispered. Vincent crouched beside him, just as he had on that first terrifying day. Not quite every story, Carlos, but enough for you to start writing your own. Camila stood in the doorway, watching the man she loved read with the students who had changed both their lives. Vincent still had money, still had influence, but now he used them to build rather than extract, to lift rather than profit. The Sterling Community Development Initiative had purchased and renovated the Bronx properties, creating affordable housing and preserving local businesses. His life looked nothing like it had a year ago, and he had never been happier. That evening, as they walked through the neighborhood that had become his home, Vincent took Camila's hand. Thank you, he said simply. For what? For seeing who I could be before I saw it myself. For refusing to let me buy my way into your life. For teaching me that the best things can't be purchased. You did the hard part, Vincent. You chose to change. Not everyone has that courage. As the sun set over the Bronx, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Vincent realized that true wealth had nothing to do with bank accounts or luxury homes. True wealth was knowing you mattered, that your life had purpose, that you were loved not for what you had, but for who you were. And in that moment, Vincent Sterling was the richest man alive. The end.